Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome. Thanks for logging on. Everything you see here is in stock and for sale. Check the links in the description as well as the SKUs and references. You can see the prices of all of these watches. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com if you have any questions about purchase pricing or availability of these watches. So today we're discussing a variant launched in 2023 of a model line that dates back to 1904. This is the Cartier Santos Dumont skeleton micro rotor, also known as the Demoiselle, after the name of the 1907 monoplane by Alberto Santos Dumont, featured in white gold on the tungsten micro rotor. So this is a more genteel and dress-oriented Santos than, say, the Santos Large with its anti-magnetic and water-resistant properties. So this watch is 31 millimeters across, not including the crown. It's just over 8 millimeters thick and 43.4 millimeters lug to lug. So it has beautiful dress watch proportions. Now, we do have a micro rotor automatic system with a 44-hour power reserve, and if you look very carefully, I'll get a little bit closer to my light source here, we have a silicon escapement operating in the upper left-hand corner of the dial, both anchor and lever, reducing friction, magnetic susceptibility, and oscillating mass. Now you can also see that the dial and the bridges all beautifully skeletonized, mechanically assuredly, as Cartier is a mass manufacturer, but carefully, thoughtfully, and attractively. You can also see the lacquer inlays around the track of the dial, along with the hour indices. You could see the barrel in the upper right-hand corner. You could see there's a little sprung reduction wheel in the winding system that appears designed to reduce dead angle and keep the system in tension so that there is action with a minimum of micro rotor motion. You can see the keyless works underneath the dial exposed over at 3 o'clock, so you can see the operation of the crown wheel and the motion works at center, and then also the winding pinion. Turn it all over. Get another look at the reverse side. This is the 9629. The whole watch made in Cartier's La Chaux de Fonds manufacture. They are an integrated manufacturer of every part of the watch, and it's quite impressively executed. We'll do a wrist shot real quick. And this is the consummate dress watch. Beautiful, versatile, handsome, suitable for him or for her, if we're frank, due to the size. Easily sliding underneath the cuff, but in stainless steel, still everyday durable. Now, if you want a steel watch that's everyday durable, why not go back to the original everyday durable steel watch? Back in 1931, César de Trey, a roving representative of LeCoultre, allegedly, because this is a great story, but like many great stories, it's somewhat in doubt, he spoke to British polo players in India who asked for a watch that would not suffer shattered crystals due to the blows of polo mallets. So the idea was to have a watch with a rotating case, one side invulnerable, the other side, when off the horse, would be for telling time. Now, of course, that original 1931 watch was conceived as an idea by de Trey. It was later subcontracted to a French engineer. The case was made by Wenger, and the movement was at Tavannes 64, which was to say LeCoultre, normally a manufacturer, was in the unconventional position of acting as a tablisseur, or assembling all the parts as the quarterback of the operation. As a result, it did not say LeCoultre on the dial. So this 2011 launch, the tribute to 1931, technically the Grande Reverso ultra-thin tribute to 1931, gives us that same early unbranded dial. The name of the watch, not the name of the company behind it. We get a watch that is 46.6 millimeters lug to lug and about 27.5 in profile. It's only 7.7 millimeters thick. You could still customize the case back if you wish, engraving, enameling, lacquering, whatever you will. You can put your coat of arms on there, maybe a motto, a memorable date, or just your initials. Now, the watch is powered by JLC's own manufacturer, caliber 822, manual wind, 45-hour power reserve, 3 hertz beat rate, 21 joules, free sprung, quite handsomely made and properly shaped for rectangular case. No rectangular watch wears true to size. So this is rated as a 27.5, guys. It wears like a 41 millimeter round watch. So just keep that in mind. If you're new to my videos, my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, so that's what you're seeing right there. Gives you a good sense of scale. Now, one thing that makes this watch everyday durable, in addition to the rugged movement inside and the steel case, it's the fact that it is very well loomed. For a pure two-hand dress watch, one of the best I've encountered. Really cool piece, Grande Reverso tribute to 1931. Things are about to get very intense, because if you like this Reverso, you might be about to fall in love. This is a model announced in 2011, which was 80 years of the Reverso. It didn't actually hit the market until 2012 because of the challenges of producing something this fine. This is the Grande Reverso Blue Enamel. Now, what we've got right here is a 50-piece limited edition in white gold. This is much bigger than the 1931 you just saw. This is about 48.5 from lug tip to lug tip, 30 millimeters across the case, though still slim in profile. Now, this watch has the same kind of buff case back, now in white gold, but uncustomized and untouched. The dial is where this one really stands out. I don't know how well you can see this, but this is what's known as flinke enamel, where you have a guilloche base. So you actually have a lathe cut dial in white gold underneath several applications of translucent blue Grand faux enamel. So these numerals, the track for the minutes, the marquee, all of that is raised and relieved up from the white gold dial base, and it actually projects through the translucent blue enamel. If we get really close, I'll do my best to show you the light here, but if we get really close, you could see that guilloche pattern under the enamel. This is another caliber 822, so a JLC product inside and out, a gorgeous watch, but one that does require a bold wrist and a personality to match, as it is quite large. I would encourage you to think of this as a 43 or 44 millimeter round watch if you want a sense of how it wears. This is one of the most exquisitely beautiful, artisanal, and rare Reverso models ever made. With 50 pieces constructed and no longer being made, long since discontinued, this is one of the most sought modern Reverso references and one of the best exhibitions of everything that JaegerLeCoultre does well. Just to show you the case back, the reverse side of these Reversos don't have a whole lot going on, but there is individual series numbering. This is the epitome of elegance. So if you've got the wrist for it, you can't find a better dress watch. And remember, if you're going to buy a JLC and you want the icon, you're going to get a Memovox alarm or you're going to get a Reverso. And if you want something approaching the ultimate Reverso, look no further. All right, a little bit of a detour. We're going to stick within the Richemont group here and head over to Schaffhausen in German-speaking Switzerland. Now, the original IWC Portugueser was commissioned by the Portuguese importers of IWC, Mr. Rodrigues and Teixeira. They wanted a wristwatch that was as accurate as a pocket watch, and historically, in the 30s, the way to do that was to put a pocket watch movement in a wristwatch, because the bigger the movement, the better it kept time. So they wound up with the original purpose-built oversized watch. It wasn't a pocket watch conversion. It wasn't an officer's watch. It was a wristwatch case built on what was then a nightmare scale. Caliber, at the time, 98, sandwiched into an IWC movement, and inside reference 325, the original Portugueser. What people don't realize is that the Portuguese was such an aberration due to its size that only about 600 were made from that original reference 325 in 1939 through the full-time revival of the model as a regular offering during the Jubilee year of 1993. So this is a tribute to the original 1939 watch. This is the 5445 in stainless steel. This is the -01 model. So as you can see, 44 millimeters in diameter, but only 10.3 millimeters thick, 51.7 millimeters lug to lug. Now not a caliber 98, but a caliber 98295. Once again, a pocket watch movement in a wristwatch case. 37.8 millimeters in diameter. This movement properly large for a properly sized Portugueser. We have a traditional crown wheel layout, an extensible click with swan's neck click spring. We have golden chaton cups for the pivot jewels. We have the 3/4 plate, the balance that is almost the radius of the movement, the Jones extended arrow index inspired by the American founder of IWC, F.A. Jones. And then you can see a large overcoil hairspring, and the balance is beaten weight, a pocket watch style, 18,000 vibrations per hour. You can see what might be the world's largest hacking lever, just like that. 5-position adjustment, just like a chronometer, and the high horology standard. You can see the beveling quite attractive, the stripes narrow and nicely shaded with engine turning on the base plate, solarization on the crown wheel and ratchet wheel. The movement with a 46-hour power reserve and a wonderfully loud beat when you hold it in the hand and listen. Throwing it on the wrist, you can see it's large, but it's wearable. No Portuguese is supposed to be tiny, except perhaps, I guess, the 3531, the Klein Portugueser. This is a watch that's designed to stand out, launched in 2008 and built for about 4 model years. This is what's known as the IWC Vintage Portugueser, part of a series of watches launched in 2008 that were dubbed vintage and featured very true to history designs. And this might be the prince of them all, the true icon of IWC. If you're not a pilot, you're not an aviator, and you hate flying, this might be the IWC for you, and I know it is the IWC for me. Everything about this watch is beautiful, traditional, and exquisite. It's also proof that the Georges Kern era of IWC offered something for everyone, John Mayer. There were still plenty of great offerings and real hits from this period. You just have to look. All right. Normally, a watch like this would be the last one I present on the show, as I try to focus on the ultimate watch to end. I know enough to shut up to end the episode, but this is actually the third from last watch, and perhaps the greatest sports watch of the 2010s. Originally debuted in 2010 as a prototype, but not available for sale until 2014, with a 569-piece 70-jewel movement. This is the JaegerLeCoultre Master Compressor Extreme Lab 2. We have a Taiwan 15, basically grade 5 titanium case, a ceramic bezel. We have chronograph pushers that are shielded to prevent shearing and also to shield the multifunction crown. We have a secondary column wheel to allow the use of a multifunction push-button crown, so I can adjust the GMT feature. I can set it to set all, or I can select the winding mode. And you can see there is a radial power reserve across the top for the 60-hour power reserve. As it winds itself, or I wind it, that little red strip turns into white. Now, there's a lot more going on. We have a 60-minute digital jumping chronograph minutes display. We also have a 24-hour chronograph hours display. And then for that little stub GMT hand, the second time zone, we have a 24-hour display. We also have on the side a hacking lever to stop the movement, because this crown is a push-button function. It doesn't pull out or push in, so you need a separate hacking mechanism to slow it all down. It is immensely shock resistant, 100 meters water resistant, and very well loomed. On the reverse side, you can see a couple of cool features. One, mechanical ratcheting lugs. Listen to this. There's also a little shutter system. You lift the shutter. If you have more fingernail than I do, it's a lot easier. But when you lift the shutter up, it allows you to remove the strap without a tool and pop in the accessory leather strap that comes with the watch. This is the rubber strap for use in the water. You can see there are little metrics to remind you where you set your pin buckle, and we have a pin buckle that, if priced as a spare part, would cost about 4 figures in Swiss francs. Not only does it have a quick release system, but it has an incremental sizing mechanism that allows you to fine-tune the fit. On the back of the watch, we have caliber, 780. And take a look, we have a full balance bridge and a free-sprung balance, so a Rolex-style architecture rarely featured on a JLC product. All this has gone through the Master 1000 Hours Control column wheel vertical clutch both, and not gold, not tungsten, but a platinum winding mass with ceramic bearings and blackened bridges. It's 46.8 millimeters in diameter and 54 millimeters lug to lug, so you need a big wrist for it, but actually it wears just fine. It's probably a little bit too big for me, but big is the style when you're talking about legibility, and this watch is legible. It's got a lot going for it, and if you've got the wrist for it, skip the Richard Mille. This is the way to go. All right. Now, if you want to spend more money on your super sports watch, here we've got a watch made in 66 pieces and launched in 2022 from the Convex collection, the Duble Balancier from Greubel Forsey. So I'll start firing this up. We've got 2 coaxial fast barrels up at the top. We've got 2 angled free-sprung opposite orientation oscillators. There is a 4-minute differential that sits between them and averages out their rates. So because they are hairsprings, opposite oriented, 30 degrees from the vertical, facing away from each other, when one is caused to run fast due to gravity, the other will be caused to run slower by an equal and opposite margin. So in any position via the differential, this double balance system, which includes overcoil hairsprings and free-sprung architectures, it instantaneously cancels out the effect of gravity in any orientation on the wrist, achieving what a tourbillon would achieve in a pocket watch, but doing all of this in a wristwatch fashion. Now, the movement element, the case, the bracelet, everything is made of grade 5 titanium. The watch is 100 meters water resistant, and as you can see, it's quite well loomed. We have a bracelet, which is uncommon on a Greubel Forsey product. The watch is about 46.5 from lug to lug and 43.5 across. The bracelet features 3 different finishes, polished, satin, and media blast. And then internally, we have a locking rack system. So if you were to lift the release for the rack, you have incremental sizable adjustability in there. And though the watch is large, or at least it's large by size rating, it fits really easily. Super comfortable, super light, and the way it fits, ergonomic dream. You can see the bracelet and the lugs arcing around my wrist. And I've often spoken of how Greubel Forsey's Balancier sports watch sort of tones down the company's traditional standards of finish and materials. Well, that doesn't go for the Double Balance and the Tourbillon sports watches. Those are still built like old school Greubel Forsey, which means the closer you get, the more astounding the detail becomes. This is an uncompromised Greubel Forsey product from the old school of Greubel Forsey standards, albeit in a sporting package that's light, water resistant, well loomed, and everyday viable. A really cool piece. I'll show you the back. There's not as much to see on the back. You can see the super dark ruthenium coat with a media blasted profile, golden chaton for the pivot jewels, and one of 66. The 66 to be made over several model years. Of course, they're not exactly opening up the floodgates. This is an unbelievable watch, and just take a look at the structure of each one of these balance bridges with their pillars, their polish, the beveling. Everything about this watch exhausts superlatives. Okay. I lied. I've got a few more. I actually thought I had 3 watches left. This is one you're definitely going to want to see because it's not too often that we talk about a pre-war A.Lange und Sohne. Now this is a Lange pocket watch, which you can see features a little bit of an element of historical engraving, push-button release for the cover, a gorgeous Breguet hand, enameled dial. We're going to open up the reverse of this watch, and you're going to see that there is a dust cover, hole marking, and then a beautiful manual wind, likely acid frosted 3/4 bridge, double solarization on the ratchet wheel, double solarization on the crown wheel, fired blue screws as well as polished screws, a lovely and beautifully detailed click and click spring. We have an oscillator at 18,000 vibrations per hour with a gorgeous blued overcoil hairspring, black polished swan's neck, 3/4 bridge in the finest tradition of German pocket watch making, and a watch that you could imagine pulling out of your pocket to wow and astound your friends anywhere. A wristwatch, anyone can find a wristwatch. It's just a matter of paying the price. For well under $5,000, this is something you can't just go out and buy. This is something that has to first be found, and we find very few like this. Now, it comes with a full matching gold chain, and if your nails aren't as adept at opening a case, it also comes with a lovely upscale case knife to pop open the dust cover in the case back when the time comes. A watch that represents the highest grade of finish, craft, and history, as well as rarity and preservation. This is not going to cost you much more than a Tudor, but rest assured, if you pass up this one, it's going to be a long time before you see another. Now, I see a lot of RM11s, RM5s, and RM10s. I don't see a whole lot of the Audemars Piguet Renault et Papy Richard Mille watches. This one right here was a launch from 2009. This is the RM21 Aerodine, and it features an orthorhombic titanium aluminide baseplate. That's what that honeycomb structure is, both front and back. It's a unique aerospace alloy, and you can see on the reverse side, this is the RM21 movement. It's got a multifunction crown with a little star wheel function selector and a spring, a little jumper spring down there that allows you to select the different functions, including neutral, winding, and setting. The watch is in a white gold case. that's 39 millimeters across and about 48 millimeters from lug to lug, so it's got some nice weight to it. You can see the finishing on this one is unconventional, as it features a little bit of fluting along the shoulders of the bezel, along with a media blasted treatment. We have little sprung titanium bridges for the barrel as well as the tourbillon. The tourbillon is free sprung, beaten away at 3 Hertz, a 1-minute tourbillon with an overcoil hairspring, extraordinarily shock resistant. You can see up at the top, power reserve indicator and a torque meter. And the torque meter basically tells you how healthy the mainspring is. And then the power reserve here, manual wind, is 70 hours. Now throw it on the wrist and it fits beautifully because, well, it is shaped like a wrist. It's easier to see when you hold it upside down. The curvature of this watch makes it an ideal match for any wrist, really. And you can see even in the 48 millimeter lug-to-lug size, which is roughly the size of an RM10, the watch is nowhere near the edge of my wrist, and the feel is outstanding. If you want a full-fat Richard Mille, no Vaucher base, no Dubois de Praz module, just APRP jeans inside and Volgine casing, this is going to be one of those, featuring one of Richard Mille's favorite things, bizarre, esoteric, aerospace, or motor racing inspired core material, and that is what the base plate of this movement is made of. So this is a really cool piece, but I'm sorry, the next one, Richard, is even cooler. Richard, don't take offense, but this is the Weekend Watches debut, or I guess we don't know when this will air, but it is the inventory show debut of Roger W. Smith. So this model right here launched in 2015. Smith became the apprentice of George Daniels in 1997, started making watches under his own name with the Series 1 in 2001, and he had 4 new or substantially redesigned watches for 2015, of which this triple calendar moon phase was one. Now, the thing that really sets this watch apart, aside from the fact that it is almost entirely made in the shops of the man whose name is on the dial, but this watch has a system that allows you to instantaneously jump all 4 indications on the dial. Now, that is incredibly difficult to achieve, as only some 6- and 7-figure Patek Philippe models can actually do that. And so you can also see the entrenched date indicator. So Smith draws his ethic from traditional 18th and 19th century British watchmaking, as well as the traditions of his mentor, George Daniels. And Daniels always dictated that a watch should be easy to read. So in order to have an orbital date that wouldn't block the time or the other calendar indications, the idea was to have this submerged, sort of dropped trench around the edge. And then we've got a crosshatch or basket weave guilloche center, golden chapter rings. We have Smith's distinctive hands, which are fired to a lovely violet brown hue. That takes a shorter firing than blue. As you can see, we have fired blue here, but this takes a particularly disciplined and well-timed application of heat and oxygen. And then you can see the distinctive tips of his hands, almost like the mantle of a squid. And you can see that there's a little basket weave cut on the moon phase inside its aperture, along with a pyramide-style clou de Paris on the sub-register. Now, the watch does feature a hacking seconds function, so you can set it to a reference time. The timepiece with a 36 to 40 hour manual wind power reserve, because Smith focuses on optimizing the timing of his watch during the first 24 hours. So his assumption and recommendation is that you're going to wind the watch every 24 hours the same time each day. This is large by the standards of his shop, 41 millimeters in diameter. It's about 48.3 and then 14.3 millimeters thick. So 48.3 lug to lug. You can see it features a simple pin buckle right here. We've got a couple of different hallmarks there. We've got the maker's mark, Roger Smith. We have the little crown in the 750. That is Great Britain. You've got the little cat's face. You can see the hallmarks here as well. Little cat means hallmarked or assayed in London. The X means the year 2022. And I'm not altogether sure what that final mark is, but I've decoded as much of it as I can as an ignorant American. And then you can see that the Smith strap's actually a very nice piece, as it has rubber inlays on the bottom, and then it has sort of conventional patent leather on the top. We take a look at the movement. Now, this is again where Smith draws from the tradition of British watchmaking and Daniels. Traditionally, Finishing was something that marked integrity. It was not something intended to be baroque, and that was very much Daniel's approach. He thought that innovation was prime, competent assembly and finishing was important, but if you just gilded the lily, it meant you had run out of ideas. Similarly, historic British watchmaking, reflected both here and on my Garrick, emphasizes certain codes, such as the use of a large 3/4 plate, of an engraved cover to the ratchet and crown wheel, and that part is freehand, and you can also see a freehand engraving of the balance cock. An unexpected surprise, we have what Smith calls his quadra-just balance. It's actually a free-sprung balance, and somewhat surprising to me, you can see that this watch uses a flat hairspring. It's the quality of the balance and the adjustment of the watch that imparts the accuracy across positions. You can see the variable masses on the balance rim, and it beats away at 18,000 vibrations per hour. Note the enormous fire-blued screws. You've got the Triskelion, the symbol of the Isle of Man, where Smith has his atelier. And then if you look underneath the balance, you can see the most elaborately finished part of the watch is actually that black polished and beveled rose gold bridge for the coaxial escapement. You can just barely see the coax. It's that blue wheel at the center of the screen. This is actually the single wheel coax, so it has crenellated towers, a bit like a column wheel chronograph, or like the crenellated towers of the escape wheel on a Breguet twin wheel natural escapement. But the idea is here it's coaxial. You have those outboard spokes which are impulsing the balance, and the inboard crenellated towers are also impulsing the balance, and they're in the same axis. That is, they pivot on the same pivot, so they're coaxial. This is a double impulse, direct and indirect impulse system, and the idea is that it is tangential friction rather than a Swiss lever's sliding friction, which between impulse and run to banking creates a lot of extraneous energy loss, whereas this system helps to improve accuracy, reduce maintenance requirements, lubrication requirements, and even extend power reserve a little bit. You can see that the locating pegs for that bridge on the base plate have been polished on their top, and we have traditional frosted bridge profiles with jewel-fixed golden chaton for the barrel arbor and the train. This is stuff dreams are made of. I'll throw it on my wrist here so you get a sense of it. Again, bigger than the other Roger Smith watches, which tend to be a bit smaller. It's also more complicated, and Smith making maybe about a dozen watches per year. My understanding is that this piece here is unique and one of around 10 examples of the Series 4 made to date. That is my understanding. In any regard, as rare as they come. So reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.